1, 2. That's a good sign, right?
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
Mic check, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 3. C'est bon?
Bon, c'est bon. Ça peut faire.
Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. I'll just maybe make a few opening remarks. Tout d'abord, évidemment, il est encore tôt et j'aurai plus de commentaires à formuler quand nous aurons plus de détails. Il est très préoccupant d'entendre parler de la perte d'emplois fédéraux. Près de 50% des employés fédéraux travaillent dans la région de la capitale nationale, ce qui pourrait représenter une perte de 8 000 emplois au cours de la prochaine année et jusqu'à 20 000 emplois au cours des prochaines années. Souvenons-nous que ce sont des membres de notre communauté qui risquent de perdre leur gagne-pain. Mes pensées vont donc aux fonctionnaires qui sont inquiets pour leur avenir. Comme je l'ai déjà dit, il est essentiel que le gouvernement fédéral travaille avec la ville pour élaborer un plan de transition pour ses employés, ainsi qu'un plan pour soutenir notre économie locale pendant cette période de changement. Je suis encouragé de voir les investissements prévus en infrastructure, y compris la mention de l'arrondissement du centre Rockaway à Orléans. C'est un projet formidable. Je me réjouis également du projet du centre de fabrication en photonique qui sera implanté à Ottawa. Nous sommes l'endroit idéal pour ce centre. Ottawa est aussi le lieu idéal pour accueillir des investissements majeurs en technologie et en innovation en défense. So again, just a few opening remarks. Obviously it's early. I'll have more to say after we learn more specific details about the budget. But first of all, it is very concerning to learn about federal job cuts. Almost 50% of federal employees work in the National Capital Region, so that means a loss of up to 8,000 jobs in the next year and up to 20,000 jobs over the next few years. Let's remember these are members of our community who are facing the loss of their livelihood. So my thoughts are with public servants who are feeling anxious about the future. As I've said before, it's critical that the federal government work with the city on a transition plan for these employees and also a plan to support our local economy through this period of change. I am encouraged to hear about the investments in infrastructure, including the reference to the expansion of the Bob Employee Center in Orleans. That's a great project. I'm also pleased to see the plan for the Photonics Center, the Photonics Fabrication Center that will be located in Ottawa. We are the right place for that center based on our success and growth in technology, and we are also the right place to see significant investment in defense technology and innovation. As I've said before, we are Canada's defense innovation hub, so I'm hoping that a significant portion of the investment being made in the defense area will be made in Ottawa. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
I will now invite each agency in reverse alphabetical order to ask questions. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique inversé, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. We'll now start with, nous allons commencer avec Paula Tran at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you for taking our questions today. I just have a question. How will the public service cuts impact the city in regards to housing, public transit, et cetera, et cetera?
The first impact is always the uncertainty that it creates. So I think the sooner the government has more details on exactly how those reductions will be carried out, who will be affected, what departments, which individual employees, and what the plan is to support those people through the transition, how many of them will be through attrition, early retirement, those kinds of things, the better. So I'd love to see some more details on that, because in the absence of those details, it creates uncertainty and people hesitate, as I think they are already doing, to make major purchases and to spend money in the local economy. And I've heard from small business owners that they're already hearing from their customers that they're worried about the future, and that's why they're not spending as much right now. So that's the first impact. Beyond that, it depends. The impact does not have to be enormous if we're working together on a plan for those employees, that there's, as there was during other periods of transition in the federal public service, if there are supports in place to retrain those workers and launch them on new careers, if there are other investments that are being made locally that will lead to those people transitioning to different jobs, those kinds of things I think will minimize the impact. But it's still a significant number, and first and foremost, I'm thinking about the fact that there are 8,000 families potentially in our community who will be worrying about whether one or more of the members of the family are going to lose their job.
How do you feel about the investments announced today for housing, $13 billion over 5 years, especially since the federal government announced some affordable housing projects here in Ottawa?
Any investments that are being made in infrastructure and housing are very welcome. I'm looking forward to seeing the details on exactly where that will happen. I've had several conversations with the Prime Minister and with members of his cabinet about the unique opportunities we have in Ottawa to invest in housing, to use federal land to build housing. So there's lots of opportunity there, and with a commitment from the federal government to invest in those areas, I think there's a great opportunity for a lot of that investment to happen in Ottawa. So again, need to see the details, but I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing.
Thank you.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Sébastien Pierre-Rose avec le 3.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur le maire. Est-ce qu'il y aurait des investissements que vous auriez aimé voir dans le budget, mais malheureusement, vous n'avez pas vu aujourd'hui?
Non, pas nécessairement. Il y a des investissements dans les logements abordables, dans la défense, dans l'innovation, dans l'infrastructure. Alors, je ne sais pas tous les détails, je ne sais pas le portion des investissements qui sera investi à Ottawa. Alors, les détails sont très importants, mais il n'y a pas quelque chose de spécifique que j'ai attendu qui ne sont pas là, qui n'est pas là.
Vous aviez cité l'investissement du centre Bob Macquarie à Orléans.
Oui.
La ville avait déjà investi 1,7 million. Est-ce que vous attendiez aussi un investissement du fédéral et du provincial? Est-ce que c'était attendu?
Alors,
de voir ça?
Oui, ce n'est pas quelque chose que j'ai attendu, mais c'est un projet très, très important pour l'est de notre ville, et j'ai fait une tour de le centre Bob Macquarie il y a 2 ou 3 mois, et il y a beaucoup d'usagers de ce centre communautaire, et il y a l'opportunité d'ajouter quelques autres parts de ce centre. Alors, c'est un très bon projet, et d'avoir les fonds fédéraux pour ce projet, c'est plus réalistique avec un investissement du gouvernement fédéral.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous.
Merci. We will now go to Leah Larocque at CTV.
Hi, Leah.
Are you disappointed there wasn't any money for transit to help our deficit? And another thing that will impact is Canadian Heritage will have to find some cuts. Are you worried about Winterlude? Are you worried that the city didn't get enough from this budget?
My biggest worry is about the federal job cuts and the impact that that's going to have on our local economy. On the other issues, I'm looking forward to seeing more details. My understanding is the infrastructure money perhaps could include some money for transit. I look forward to seeing the details on that. I think, we're still trying to convince the federal government that investing in public transit in Ottawa is important, because we are uniquely affected by the decisions of the federal government when it comes to their workforce, and fewer people working for the federal public service, fewer people going downtown every day means that fewer people will be using OC Transpo potentially. So I'd like to continue, I will continue my advocacy to the federal government that Ottawa and Gatineau are unique in Canada, and we need the support of the federal government to continue delivering strong public transit for residents. So we'll see if that materializes in the form of infrastructure funding that can be useful to us. We did already receive, as you know, $180 million over 10 years
in transit funding previously. So maybe there's an opportunity to find more funds like that, and we'll be continuing that conversation.
Thank you. And my second question is a bit of a pivot on another big issue that will impact the budget locally here, speed cameras. Now that they're being turned off on November 14th, will policing costs have to increase in next year's budget to maintain the same level of enforcement?
I hear over and over again from members of the community that they're really worried about speeding on local roads. They're worried about racing. They're worried about the safety of their kids. They're worried about their own safety as they cross intersections, as they travel around the community. So if we're not able to use speed cameras going forward, we will have to look at other solutions to enforce speeds to make sure that our roads remain safe. And we are investing in hiring more police officers. I will continue talking with the police chief and with the Ottawa Police Service on how those officers can be deployed in the future to deal with speeding in our community, which is one of our residents' biggest priorities, and what the impact of no longer having speed cameras will be. But it's my intention to see more police officers hired next year as part of the police budget, and perhaps some of them will need to be used for that purpose.
Thank you. We will now go to Arthur White-Crummy at CBC.
Hi, Arthur.
Hi there. You called for a plan from the federal government to support our local economy through this period of change. What would that look like in your eyes? What are you calling for in terms of support?
I think there's a few different things that we've been talking to the federal government about, and I've raised in my conversations with the Prime Minister. Number one, if there are federal employees who are losing their jobs, who are not at retirement age and are simply ending their careers, to make sure that there is training available to them to launch a new career in a different area, ideally here in Ottawa. We want any workers who want to continue working and contributing to the local economy to have opportunities to do that. Secondly, I think we need the support of the federal government and the collaboration of the federal government on a plan as we continue to transition Ottawa's economy and diversify Ottawa's economy. And the defense innovation spending that the federal government is talking about could be a big part of that. We make the case that Ottawa-Gatineau together are Canada's defense innovation hub. And if the federal government supports us on that, and some of the investments that they're making in defense spending go towards companies in Ottawa-Gatineau, that will help with the transition. And the third area I would talk about is downtown and the Byward Market. We've been speaking with the federal government about the need to invest in the downtown and in the Byward Market, look at things like converting office buildings to residential where that's possible, looking at other ways to bring people downtown and stimulate economic activity downtown, because if fewer people are working downtown for the federal government, we need to have other reasons for them to come here and support the local businesses in this area. So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
Oh, and could I get a brief French remark on that too, just because I'm also filling in for Radcan?
Oui. Alors, j'ai parlé souvent avec le Premier ministre, avec les députés d'Ottawa, avec les ministres du cabinet, qu'Ottawa doit avoir un plan en collaboration avec le gouvernement fédéral pour la transition pour les employés qui vont perdre leur emploi et pour la transition de notre économie locale. Alors, s'il y aura moins d'employés du gouvernement fédéral, c'est nécessaire d'avoir des investissements dans les autres secteurs, comme le secteur de la défense, de l'innovation et technologie de la défense. Nous avons plusieurs entreprises dans ce secteur, 300 ou plus, et si le gouvernement fédéral va augmenter leur budget de la défense, selon moi, c'est naturel d'investir ici à Ottawa et à Gatineau. Et l'autre chose, c'est d'avoir un plan pour le centre-ville et le marché bail. S'il y a moins de personnes qui seront au centre-ville pour travailler, c'est nécessaire d'avoir plus de personnes qui qui vivent au centre-ville et au marché bail ou qui sont ici pour les événements, pour les autres choses. C'est nécessaire d'avoir un centre-ville et un marché bail très vibrante je pense que c'est la responsabilité du gouvernement fédéral, de nos partenaires, de travailler avec nous sur ce plan.
You talked a bit about the impact that these job losses will have on the local economy. Could you also talk about what it could mean for the city's finances, for our long-term planning? We've depended on, assessment growth and population growth to make revenue in the past. A lot of our long-term plans foresee population growing to 1.4 million people. Is that still realistic when our largest employer is cutting back?
It's a great question, and again, first and foremost, I want to say, what I'm thinking about first are the families who are directly impacted by this. There are thousands of families in Ottawa who are worried now about that mom or dad losing their job with the federal public service, and that's concerning. And those families are going to be experiencing stress and anxiety in the coming months as they go through this transition. So what kind of impact that has on Ottawa all depends on how this transition is handled. If all it is, and I'm not suggesting that this is the approach the federal government would take, but if all it was something to the effect of we're handing out a bunch of letters to some federal public employees and then they're on their own, that would be very concerning. If there are transition plans in place to retrain and reskill those workers and give them other opportunities, if there is a plan to support our transition within our local economy, to create jobs in other sectors, then the impact could be greatly diminished. And we could see that, we could see economic growth continuing in Ottawa in spite of the job cuts at the federal level. So it all depends on how those reductions are introduced, how they're handled, and how much we're able to work together with the federal government on a transition plan.
And French also on.
OK. Alors, ça dépend. Si le gouvernement fédéral est prêt à travailler avec nous sur un plan de transition pour les employés qui veulent continuer leur carrière dans un autre endroit, s'il y a l'opportunité de collaborer sur un plan de transition pour notre économie régionale, pour le centre-ville, pour le marché bail, l'impact de ces réductions ne sera pas très important. Mais s'il n'y a pas un plan, et peut-être l'impact sera plus grand pour la ville d'Ottawa.
This concludes today's media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse d'aujourd'hui. Thank you. Merci.
Merci.